The End of Evil Mass Murdering Child Sex Offender Fake Physicist Lunatic Albert Einstein. Content is very distressing. Albert Einstein really died in 1970. He was one of those lunatics who claimed to get off on ritualistically abusing part Habsburgs, whether officially royal or not, but only if legitimately conceived. Regardless of whether his victims were legitimately registered at birth or not. The excuse was always that my Habsburg ancestors were related to the old real royal family of France, through Louis XIV, the same monarch of France that Emperor Napoleon was descended from. I have some body markings that are similar to Emperor Napoleon, particularly my trouser holders around my hips. My hair is green, gold, and red. In the sun, it looks just like depictions of monarch Louis XIV's hair detailed at Versailles in France. Einstein was related to vile perpetrators of a heinous crime against the French royal family in the 1790s, approximately, who were executed. It was after they murdered real French royalty in a disgustingly heinous incident that never seems to go away. There is no delicate way to put this. When the perpetrators were caught lunatic partying in the royal buildings in France with the real French royal victims' deceased bodies all over the floors, they were caught taking turns sexually molesting the bodies. There was evidence that the other corpses in the buildings had already been sexually molested after death as well. The kind of lunatics of the type who think there is always a way to pretend there is no such thing as law, official documentation, official records, and identification techniques, temporarily. In this case they pretended dead bodies didn't count as rape. The perpetrators of the mass murder of the French royals were found squatting in the buildings the crimes were committed in. They were having a post-mass murder fancy dress party. Wearing the deceased victims' clothing and jewelry, including crowns, with the deceased murdered royals' bodies strewn on the floors. They were interrupted by an army who had sworn allegiance to Napoleon, who found the crime scene. Napoleon consequently became the only person eligible to be the new emperor when the French royal victims were found dead. When the loyal army took the buildings and there was heinous evidence of molestation of the bodies of the dead royals, they didn't hesitate. They immediately executed every perpetrator involved after securing the buildings without hesitation. Some later argued they should have been arrested, as if the immediate executions were offensive in some way. Even that they denied the perpetrators the shame of the infamy of their crimes, and the public's need for public vengeance wasn't satisfied first, at least. After the perpetrators were executed, the buildings were thoroughly cleaned up and the deceased royal victims all accounted for as identified. Their remains were then secured for official royal burial. Napoleon, who was genuine French royalty, was the first person eligible to be the next emperor due to the murders. He was asked to check if the recovered items were authentic afterwards. They guided him into the cleaned buildings after the bodies had been removed and let him check if the royal items recovered from the perpetrators were authentic. He only knew them by feel, as he was vision impaired. He was handed them one by one to verify them as the authentic royal artifacts. As an example, one of the crowns involved had been gently placed on his head for fun by one of his royal family members, as an "if you become emperor in the future, they'll do this thing." He knew it in great detail by feel and identified it along with the rest as the items as he knew them. The perpetrators of the heinous incident who murdered the French royals and had their little party afterwards were all from an obscure part of France called French Guiana. It is in northeastern South America and is considered to be part of the West Indies, but is part of France as a French territory. They and anyone who associates with them now tend to give themselves away by displaying something that looks like a map of French Guiana. Particularly say Arab-looking types, who seem to screw their traditional Arab headdresses slightly sideways so they look just like a map of French Guiana. One of the frustrating things about those incidents is that Napoleon had to do it by feel, as he was severely vision impaired. Some thought totally blind. The fact that he was vision impaired meant liars thought they had an easy ride picking on a blind guy with their post-incident fictional rubbish. Everything afterwards, particularly after the invention of the camera as a usable piece of equipment, was themed around the idea if Napoleon could have seen this. The blind guy. Faking royal-themed photographs became an obsession for them because people looked at them and they were an extension of picking on a blind guy. Afterwards, before and after he became Emperor Napoleon as successor to his royal family predecessors, loony people started pretending if the perpetrators of the murders stole the jewelry, wore the crowns, used the furniture, and squatted in the buildings until caught and executed, that should be enough. Even if the crown was way too big for the idiot imposter's skull. That it should be assumed they genuinely became the new royal family, temporarily, just by committing the crime, wearing the clothing and jewelry including crowns, and using the royal items in the buildings, including the furniture, including a throne used in a coronation, if you like. Then, that new Emperor Napoleon should be incorrectly assumed to have violently stolen it back or off them again, by their executions, then recovering a crown, jewelry, clothing, and furniture. Napoleon's statement, approximately, "Well, I'll have to declare myself the new emperor to be at some point," spoken quietly in the aftermath and grief, became a putridly fictionalized tale of conquering a bunch of lunatics that temporarily stole the French royal family as if theirs. It was fictionalized to their execution at his order, as if they were the royal family, for a few days before he ordered their execution. Then his impromptu coronation on the spot whilst blood was still spurting out the perpetrators' necks. With the crown placed on his head in front of army witnesses and a quick verbal declaration that he stole it back and was declaring himself emperor, sort of thing. As if the fictional details matched what was required for people to pretend the perpetrators were the royal family between the murders of the real royals and the perpetrators' execution. You know the drill by now, and you've seen the corrupt sport results parodies and metaphors. They even went as far as pretending that descended relatives of the perpetrators of the murders of the French royals should be aggrieved that Napoleon became emperor instead of one of them. And it was worth disputing, as if one of them could become emperor in the future. Afterwards, people started pretending descendants and descended family of the executed perpetrators should have gotten to use the vacant royal properties in France on an ongoing basis and keep pretending to have stolen the estate, particularly after they became vacant, so they would get used. Even the fiction that they symbolically restole it back off Emperor Napoleon after the perpetrator's execution. Or, if people didn't let them do that, they threatened to steal another royal family to pretend to compensate themselves for not getting to pretend to own the French royal estate. They then started claiming it as tradition to kill and sexually molest the dead bodies of people related to the old French royal family. Including if those people don't pretend the descendants and descended family of the executed perpetrators aren't the real royal family now, or don't pretend the perpetrators took over being the new royal family temporarily until executed. They still insist people must pretend the perpetrators swap places with the murdered French royals and ask people to support them when they claim they should be allowed to use the remains of the French royal estate as if theirs. My indigenous Australian great-great-great-great-grandmother Louise married into my Hohenzollern royal family monarchy of Germany in 1793. She was born in the old city of Järingen in what is now Gippsland and emigrated to Germany as a child, settling in Mecklenburg-Strelitz. It made her a princess in my royal family and queen of the permanently defunct kingdom of Prussia as well. She married Kaiser Frederick Wilhelm III, my sixth predecessor. Princess Louise had private meetings with Napoleon during that period, themed as the Queen of Prussia and princess spouse of the Kaiser of Germany, speaking to an eligible French royal who would become emperor. France v Prussian War was convoluted by the fact that very few people knew the perpetrators of the mass murder of French royals were from South American France, French Guiana. They usually paint themselves brown as if it is ceremonial when they try anything on now and put on a French accent or a South American one.